Oh, there he is.
All right.
He's over there.
Huh? Yes. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Warren City Council meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam President.
Mr. Bacamino?
Present.
Ms. Comartin?
Present.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Liss?
Here.
Mr. Sadowski?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Present.
Ms. Vogt?
Here.
Mr. Warner?
Here.
Camp present.
Adoption of the consent agenda.
So
moved.
Motion by Ms. Vogt.
Support.
Support by Mr. Stevens. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Here. Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Adoption of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Motion by
Support.
Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Green. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item number 6, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 11th, 2011. These were tabled on January 25th, 2011. The minutes of the regular meeting from January 25th, 2011, and the special meeting of January 24th, 2011. I make a motion to remove the minutes from the table of January 11th.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Stevens to remove the minutes from January 11th from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes have been removed from the table.
Madam Chair, discussion.
I need a motion and support in favor of the minutes first.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Green,
Support.
support by Mr. List. Discussion, Mr. List.
On the January 11th meeting, I believe it's page 21.
Page 21.
Page 21, my comments were excluded from the minutes. And so I'm asking to retable them in order to have my comments put into the minutes.
Mr. Green, do you support that?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Liss, was there a specific agenda item? What was the agenda item on
It
page
was the
21?
redistricting.
On the redistricting issue.
Okay, very good.
All right, so I have a motion to retable the minutes of January 11th, 2011, to include Mr. List's comments.
Yes, sir. Yes, Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin? did you have-
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just on page 3, bottom of that page, last paragraph, it was just serving as vice president, and that was for the Mr. Morowski. That's the only other change, Madam Chair.
Okay, so to include that correction on page 3 as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments? Okay, with that,
Do
I'll
we
go
need
ahead.
support for the motion to retable?
Yes, I'm sorry. I asked Mr. Green if he supported that, but it was, yes, I apologize. So I have a motion by Mr. List,
Support.
support by Ms. Vogt. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes of January 11th have been retabled. Now I have the motion by Mr. Green in regards to the minutes of January 25th and the special meeting of January 24th. And Mr. List, you supported that?
Yes.
Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. List?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item number 7, approval of the bills.
So moved.
Support with discussion, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. Green, support by Ms. Comartin. Discussion, Ms. Comartin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Page 1 of 3, check number 86934. It was for $1,449. And this was a garden maintenance inspection report. My question is that we had roof inspections of 19 buildings located over at Warcup, and I was just curious what the status was of those buildings and if any of those were looking at being incorporated with the green grant money. Because I know we looked at that and we had some other roofs that were changing positions.
Right, as we discussed earlier, we've not had a chance to talk to Dave Monet yet, so I can get that answer for you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. That concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
Any other comments from council members?
I had a comment. I just want to let you guys know we paid the consumer's energy bill, and we had over $4,000 in rebates that we were expecting when the contract rate changed from 69 down to 67 cents. I just wanted to point that out to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, and just more, and I apologize, I didn't have opportunity to get to a fax machine today. Page 2 of the regular bills, check number 503071 for Broadspire Services for $2,149.92. You know what that was covering?
I have no idea.
Can you just, when you get an opportunity, can you look that one up? And check number, on page 10, check number 503213 for Richmond Transport, $1,385.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the page?
Page 10.
10?
I've got the backup on that one, Madam Chair.
Oh, Ms. Comartin has it, I'll look at hers.
Okay.
So we'll save you that one. But if you can just look up that one on page 2, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
There's no other questions regarding...
Madam Chair?
Mr. Bachmino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Malzik, am I saying that correctly again? Because I know
Yep.
I'm new to the city. Mr. Rob Malzik, page 4, I'm looking at, let's see, check number 503129 from council. It's for mileage. It's for $21.42. Does that comes out of our budget, and I guess what I'm asking is, does that have to be, is that something that we get every month, or, I don't know, maybe I should ask someone on council, maybe the council secretary.
Yes, sir.
Is that for the mileage for delivering packets and things like that?
Delivering packets, also there's mileage. Our office has to travel back and forth to City Hall to not only pick up mail, but inter-office mail. So that mileage is calculated.
I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm trying to make a point. If we could maybe, I know we use like electronic, I get these, called jump drives. What's the other word for it? Jump
The
drives.
zip drives, yeah.
Zip drives. If we eliminated the packets, some way paper packet, not only will we save on paper, save trees and money that way, but will we save on this mileage expense too? I don't know if that's to the controller or to the secretary.
Mr. Bachmino, one point I want to make with you, Mr. Sadowski and I just spoke today. I know from my perspective, not only are we going green to save money, but to save the environment, but historically, we've sent out 24 packages of the list of bills. A lot of money, time, and effort, and starting next week or next council meeting, I plan to send them to Mr. Sadowski's office, and you guys will be getting it electronically from now on.
I appreciate that, because I do think, we overlook the fact that it is going green, but it saves paper, that's money, but the main thing is the man hours, and also now I'm looking through the bills, the mileage. The second thing is, does the person that delivers and drives around, do they submit a receipt to you, or how do we verify, like, how much they've driven?
It's, I believe 51 cents a mile now. I'd have to double check that, but I believe it's 51 cents a mile, and it's, it's multiplied out by the amount of miles that they do, and I'm sure a supervisor signs off on it, and we go from there, and then we pay it.
Is there a form that we use for all city employees, or do they just fill out?
Yes.
And we approve it? Okay, but they do submit, they don't have to submit a receipt, then they just fill out a form?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Something to look into, especially since we're going
The
to...
mileages are fairly routine for the month.
Okay.
Like I said, the back and forth to City Hall, as well as dropping off the council packets. One of the other things that we're looking into, one of the problems that we have with delivering the e-packets through email is the size of the package itself. We would have to order software in order to be able to send out a piece of information that big. Right now, you can pull it off of the internet, but it's not the same. It's not the same packet that we receive. The one that we receive in the zip drives is a little bit more user-friendly.
All right, I guess I'm just trying to double check there. Going green would save us, you know, even though it's $21, it's driving around, things like that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further comments?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Stevens?
thank you. On page 1, check number 503198. Are we just getting around to that? It's for active irrigation, because I see no signs of any work having been done, and I wouldn't imagine that it would be done this time of year, but if you could just let me know what
I
the
will.
reason for that is.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further comments? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bocamino?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item 7A, this item was tabled on January 25th, 2011. Request for approval of check number 502733 in the amount of $3,900 payable to Coble Community Research. Motion to remove from the table.
Support.
Motion to remove from the table by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The item's been removed from the table.
Motion to approve with discussion, Madam Chair.
Support.
Motion to approve by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Stevens. Discussion, Mr. Sadowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hartley, I want to thank you for returning my call earlier today. One of the questions that I had to you with regard to the COBOL information, I was a little concerned as the way some of the questions were asked on the email that you had sent to us. Now, I understand from our discussions that the core questions that go out cannot be changed because we use those in this service so we can benchmark against other communities, and I understand, but we can add our own questions in there. Specifically, the way the first question is stated about if we had a budget deficit or a budget crisis and we wanted to look at eliminating these types of services. Some of the services that they talk about are related within Parks and Rec, within the library, and those two budgets have their own form of revenue that comes in. So they don't take money from the general fund to pay for those budgets. But however, the way it's worded, it sounds as if, well, geez, I don't want anything to happen to the police department, so therefore I would suggest that we would get rid of everything within Parks and Rec and everything within the library, just so we could, keep police intact. And I don't think most people realize that even if the library system was eliminated, it still wouldn't help the police department. And I think that people are going to be confused, or we will get less accurate data if it's worded the way it is.
Yes, I took note of your thoughts on these separate funds, and in addition to that, you could add sanitation or rubbish removal and recycling programs, which indeed are funded from a separate fund as well. So yes, the idea of this is to benchmark the level of service in many different fashions, but specific to the question that you're bringing up, the choices that would be given would be eliminate the service, reduce the levels of the service, raise taxes and fees for the service, combine the service with another community, or privatize the service. And obviously, as you stated, it could be confused that someone is saying, well, I don't want to have the ice rink because I want police, whereas you're correctly stating that the two really aren't funded through the same stream anyway. So that could add a level of confusion. I have with me William Sainamore, who is the Executive Director of Cobalt Community Research, and I think that he could probably more adequately answer your question about the outcome of the results and how they could affect your concern. And I'll let Mr. Sainamore.
And I just have one more point that I wanted to make. I guess if we were looking at it, and if the question was stated, if you would look at this specific department, and you would make changes within this specific department, I think that might clarify, that might make the question more clear.
And we actually added the word "this." That was not the boilerplate option that we had, but we changed it to eliminate this service, because the way it'll be laid out, it'll say animal control, and then it'll have those 5 choices. Then it'll say city jail, and it'll have those services. So we tried to make it specific to that particular purpose, but what it doesn't do, and I think that's what your concern is, it doesn't separate the issue of when you put the parks and rec issues right next to public safety issues, people are going to try to decide between the two, and it's really not, our financial structure really isn't set up that way. So I can understand the level of confusion that could cause. So the purpose of the core survey, which is questions 1 through 23 that I think that you all received, those are the core, that's the core survey that Mr. Sadowski you referred to. Those are the questions that have been established by Cobalt that are asked specifically and without change to all the benchmark communities, so that your result is measured the same way. That mainly is to determine the respondents' perception about quality of life and understand their satisfaction and performance of the service. The additional last 2 questions, which are the custom questions that are new this year, are specifically designed to get input from the citizens as to how we should respond, or the stakeholders should respond, as to how to fund these things in tight budgetary times.
And we used this service, we used the same company last year?
2 years ago.
2 years
that's
ago?
Correct.
Okay.
So the survey, the core survey, is going to be identical in question to the original one, and that way the scores, when they come back, we'll not only be benchmarking ourselves with communities throughout this state and throughout the country, but we'll also be benchmarking ourselves with ourselves. So if those levels have gone up or down, we'll see those from 2 years ago, and that's why it's essential that we use that core. Those variable questions, and again, we're happy to take recommendations just as you're making from council to try to tweak these so that they give us the kind of intelligence that we're really trying to get from the citizens.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'm done.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. I just want to get a timeline that we're looking at for getting the response back and the comparison.
Sure. I did ask Mr. Sainamore that question myself earlier. I'll have him answer in his own words, because he will be delivering the results.
Okay, great.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me. The results take about 6 weeks from the point where the survey is approved until the initial results and comparisons are available.
Okay, and when are we going to start the survey process?
The survey process, you have the draft questions, so it's a matter of finalizing the questions. Once they're finalized, it's really a 6-week starting point from there. So if you're able to finish it by the end of February, then mid-April you'd have the results.
Okay,
And if it's
and
sooner, then it would be.
we're looking basically at the 23 questions plus the 2 additional custom questions that we added in and no other ones, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, and then doing the comparison, are you going to be coming back to council to do a comparison and give us an analogy of what happened with the results?
Would be happy to do that.
All right, we'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's included in the price, and actually, William does a very thorough examination. I think one of the counts, Mr. List, last year asked me for the crosstabs. I emailed them to him, so he had those. You're all welcome to in other words, the raw results that you can kind of drill down on if you so
Right.
choose. But from a cursory perspective, Mr. Sainamore will provide us, and he'll come here and deliver a detailed analysis for you, and that's all included in the, and SEMCOG obviously is our partner in this, so we have their additional analysis, which comes for free, so we're happy to.
Okay, so we'll get an additional analysis from them. I really think with, the economy and looking at things and, what is important to the residents, we have to take everything in consideration when times get tough. So I appreciate this, and thank you for really giving us the backup and the additional information. Thank you.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
Any further comments?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. List?
I'll yield to whoever else was asking.
Oh, that's fine, you go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Sainamore,
Yes, sir.
am I pronouncing your name correctly?
You are.
Okay, I've never seen a name with a thought of space between Saint and Amore. One basic question, when you perform the survey, do you randomize the questions, or not the questions, but the potential answers for the question? Let's say, for example, here you say, how important are the following programs provided by the City of Warren? And then you list anti-drug programs in school, regional cooperation programs with neighboring communities. Do you randomize that?
The questions themselves are not randomized, and that's because this will be principally a paper-based survey. People do have the option of completing online, but having a randomized survey in a paper fashion would be extremely expensive. And the benefit that you have from randomizing those particular variables, you don't get that much of a skewing from randomizing
Okay,
them.
that was my
And
next
so
question
it's
is,
balancing the cost with the payoff.
have you analyzed these surveys in the past to see if there's any skewing based on the place where the questions, the position where the question's placed?
There can be, we work to not do that. For example, if you have police and fire right next to each other, there's something called a halo effect that can affect that, so we try to split those apart. Similar
Try to
types
keep
of
one
strategy.
from influencing the other?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
In the number of questions you ask, sometimes I think if, I see about 10. What's your experience with the drop-off rate for people to answer those questions?
Sure. It's really about the 10-minute mark. So once you go over 3 pages front and back, once you go to that 4th sheet of paper, that's when it really starts to drop. Typically, from a response rate perspective, we see between 25 and 35%. I believe when we ran a similar survey back 2 years ago, it was well over 30%, which is very
Which I
strong.
thought was pretty remarkable. How do you randomize the participants?
We usually draw it from the voter registration list, and we use a utility that actually creates random numbers from atmospheric noise.
And how many people will you survey?
We'll survey 1,500.
And how many do you expect we're back, about 500?
We had 588 last time. so
And
we'll
what
be
would you estimate your confidence factor to be at?
It would be plus or minus 4% for general analysis. And for the section that's based with the University of Michigan's ACSI, it was plus or minus 1.8%.
Really?
So it's very, very precise.
Very precise. And on the crosstabs?
And on the crosstabs, it depends on which questions you're looking at and how many people respond from the different demographic groups.
Sure.
So
I mean, if
those
you get,
the margin of error would grow as the group.
yeah, I mean,
shrinks.
if you have 10 people in that certain demographic, you're going to have a much larger.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, and appreciate you coming down here today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sandmore, thank you for coming tonight, and, as I went through this, I have the last one done in 2009. I refer to it all the time, It's an excellent tool, but I'm sure that most people sitting at home right now are saying, what the heck are they talking about? They know we're talking about a survey.
Sure.
And even some of the questions, when you go through here, it talks about electrical service or utilities and stuff. How does questions like that, how do they tie into the city-specific? And could you, for the general knowledge of the people sitting here in the audience and at home, could you describe the use and purpose of this survey, please?
I'd be happy to. And let me give you a little bit of background first on who Cobalt is. Cobalt, we're not a private company, we're not for-profit, we're a 501c3 nonprofit research coalition based here in Michigan with a mission to provide research and education for public entities, so cities and townships and schools, as well as other nonprofit organizations. When we built this, the first thing we wanted to do is look at the problem in Michigan of why are people leaving, how can we get people to stay and be more engaged, more entrepreneurial, and so on. So when we built the survey, we were really looking at it from a behavioral standpoint. What are the behaviors that cities and communities care about? Satisfaction is nice, but it's something of a fluffy kind of measurement. We were really looking at behavioral things, and the behavioral things we built into the mission, into the model, remaining in the community, recommending it to others, volunteering, encouraging businesses to start up within the community. So that core survey looks at a number of different elements, some that are controlled by the city, some that aren't controlled by the city, but they all affect those kind of behaviors. Why do people move into Warren in the first place? Why do they move out? And then mathematically we derive what are the drivers of those specific behaviors. So you can really make it a better place to live, as well as having some intelligence to guide budgetary decisions.
Thank you very much. Very succinct. So it's trying to find out why people are, to a large degree, from what I understand, getting their education here and then moving someplace else.
That's a part of it,
Yeah.
yes.
So, thank you very much.
My
Madam
pleasure.
Chair, thank you.
Any other comments from council members? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Comart?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 8, approval of the building authority checks, meeting of February 1st, 2011.
Need a motion and support?
Motion approved.
Support with discussion, please, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. Green, support by Ms. Vogt. Discussion, Ms. Vogt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Melasek? The check for $255,828.57 to the treasurer, what is that?
That's 6 months' worth of expenses for payroll activity and also for any of the list of bills that that you guys have already approved through the general fund that's now being reimbursed.
Okay, and where did that money come from?
From the general fund.
I mean, okay, the $255,000 is going into the general fund,
Correct.
right?
It's coming from the building authority.
Okay, I understand from the building authority. Is it generated by interest on the bonds, or is this actual bond principal? Where did this $255,000 originate?
Right, it would come from all the proceeds from the building authority, correct?
From the bonds?
Yes.
It's the principal from the bonds?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Is there any chance you and I will ever get that lunch we?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
I love.
I have the detail here too, if you want of the 255.
I'm sorry.
Of the 255,000, I have the backup if you want that.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Comartin?
I'd like to be excused from check number 1411 for a $50 per diem check for the building authority.
So moved.
Second, support.
Motion by Mr. Green to excuse Ms. Comartin, support by Mr. Liss. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens? Oh, sorry, didn't realize I wasn't there. Ms. Vogt?
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. Ms. Comartin's been excused by a vote of 7. Now I need a motion and a support for approval of Ms. Comartin's check, number 1411.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Liss, support by Mr. Green. Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
No.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens? Still not here, sorry. Ms. Vogt?
We're approving the check?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The item passed 6-1. Now I have the original motion for approval by Mr. Green and a support by Ms. Vogt. Any further discussion?
Discussion, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bacamino?
Thank you. The building authority's drawn a lot of attention lately. I know we have 3 new members. In fact, I'm looking at the minutes right now, and they've elected, I guess, or established a new chairman, a secretary, and and then commissioner with the ex officio spot as well. And I made some phone calls, and a lot of audience members have asked to check into the building authority, so I started doing that this week. And well, I guess what I'm finding out is the bylaws entitle the city attorney that attends and the controller to a per diem. And my concern is, and I've talked to our current controller and some of the city attorneys and the current city attorney as well, and asked them if they take that check, and they say no, but my concern is it's in the bylaws. And I want to know if the city charter somehow, or when we could vote to eliminate that, because so be it, the current city controller and the current attorneys do not accept the $50. Future counsel or future attorneys, I mean, we've had several controllers in the last year, I think 2 or 3, and same thing with city attorneys. Should they be inclined to take it, the bylaws say they can, even though it may not be the best choice because they are still under the clock, city time. It's at 4 o'clock. So I guess through the chair to the city attorney, I'm asking, does the building authority bylaws supersede the city charter, or does the city charter, could we somehow, is there something in the city charter to prevent future controllers and future attorneys that may not be so kind and may accept that?
I don't know if I
Mr.
have the
Burnett.
complete answer. Thank you. I don't know if I have the complete answer, but as you know, the building authority is a creature of statute.
Can you turn on your mic?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Here, I'm sorry. The building authorities are a creature of statute, created in 1948, I believe, and the statute provided that they be incorporated and laid out the requirements for incorporation. And that's exactly what happened in this case. And following the filing of the Articles of Incorporation, of course, bylaws were filed, and under Section 9 of the bylaws, officers and members shall receive compensation, etc., and such per diem and mileage, if any, as may be fixed by the commission with approval of the city council. Now, apparently, the city council has approved the payment and has for apparently many years. And so you have this dichotomy of the receipt of monies on one hand, or expenses to the commission itself, including the ex officio, what has been named as an ex officio member. In reviewing this matter, I believe what has happened here is there was at some time in the near past a recommendation that if that presents a problem to the council, an easy way to solve that problem would be to amend the bylaws, if you wish to do that.
Mr. Bachmino, can I just add something to
Please do, because that's what I'm trying to do, is somehow, do we get to amend the bylaws, or is that something the building authority does? And if we can do it, I would, because before you mention, am I correct in saying, Mr. Viernat, you have not received a check for this past meeting? I didn't want to misquote you when I said that the current city attorney did not.
No, I did not. I don't intend to.
And you don't
No, I
intend
don't
for
think
the record?
I've never even thought about it, frankly.
And the same, I guess, Mr. Malchek, if you could, just for the record, because accusations have been made in the past that city controllers and city attorneys have, and I'm not quite sure, but I do want to know, for the record, you have not taken any checks for this?
No, I haven't taken a check, and matter of fact, when I looked back at some of the old checks and saw that some previous people did take checks, I thought that was disgusting.
So you're intended to, and that's why I'm saying in the future, we're kind of lucky to have 2 people now that have publicly said they won't take it, but in the future, if Mr. Burnett leaves or Mr. Malchek, we've had controller of the year, it seems like lately, for various reasons, and attorneys of the year. So that's what I'd like to see, is somehow we change those bylaws so that in the future, people working on the clock, before 5 o'clock, they're already getting paid by the city, would not have that entitlement. Currently, I believe the bylaws still allow them to, if they choose to do so, get paid.
See, if I may, the
Sure, thank you.
building authority, as adopted in 1989, did allow for them to all receive this $50 per diem, which was approved by the council of that time. Upon several of the meetings that we've had, if you recall, there's been a lot of questions raised in regards to the building authority. Council has the right, with the commission, to amend the bylaws. But one of the things to be very cautious of in doing so is that the way the bylaws were written, although that portion of the $50 per diem I do not agree with, our bylaws were specifically written to ensure that council maintained control, because state law that can enact the building authority to where they can work completely autonomous from the council. And I think that's one of the reasons that we have not opened the door to amending the bylaws to prevent that from happening. Council did not want to lose the oversight. If you remember, and I was under the impression that this and several other items may be brought to council for review after our last meeting, the committee of the whole. I know that at least no less than 26 questions were submitted to the city attorney's office to get answers as to that question. Another being, you know, in a case of council voted to adopt a bond sale, and part of that was money that was supposed to be allocated to communications, but the building authority of that time chose not to give the communications the money. So things like that, there's still ongoing questions, but
Sure.
Can it be done? Yes, council can do it. It needs to be done with caution.
And I agree. That's why I said we have 3 new commissioners, and we have a brand-new, you know, clean slate here. I'm trying to figure out a way to avoid future confrontations with the building authority. Thank you.
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to give some oversight too in some of the things that have happened, when you had a change of a controller and then we had another controller go in for a temporary time, we had city attorneys that were changing. So a lot of changes went through the process. Then people started asking more questions. It got more detailed. More things got opened up and discussed. So the old regime, everything changed from that point. We had residents that came before the building authority who sat there and asked more questions. With the new commissioners that we have on there, they're doing a great job. They're asking a lot of detailed questions because they're in a learning process too, so it's very good. But we do want to keep the control and the oversight with council, and now everything is coming before council as far as additional checks and procedures. And right in the bylaws, the Warren Building Authority bylaws, rules of procedure, Article 3, it really talks about compensation, vacancy, and removal of the officers. It has right in there in regards to the $50 per diem, and it is stated specifically right in the Articles of Incorporation. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick addition to that, and that's my point, is I'm trying to address, I know it's in the bylaws, for those people that are on the clock, and I let sort of educate the public too, because comments have been made, and gladly so, because it alerted us to this past practice. But the current attorney and controller do not. I've talked to several people that have been acting city controllers and acting city attorneys at the building authority meeting, and every one of them have said also, for the public's information, they have not taken the check as well. There was one, for the record though, if it does come out there, that did say they had some expenses and submitted receipts and were paid. So you are paid, you are compensated for costs that you incur for that meeting, but they did not take the $50 per diem, and that's what I'm trying to get in the future, but I don't want to open that can of worms if it's going to, in the end, we lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, as the last check was just talked about by Ms. Vogt. So I guess the question to the city attorney then is, we just sit on this now and wait, or how do we prevent this from happening in the future? Is there a way?
Well,
Is the city charter then, I guess my interpretation of your answer, sir, is, are you saying the city charter is, we do supersede the bylaws of the...
You certainly have the right to approve or disapprove, but as I said, the recommendation not so long ago was an amendment, and as it was pointed out, that may have pitfalls, but it is within your province to
Okay. Thank you.
take whatever action you deem appropriate. If you want a specific question of law as to how to proceed, we would receive it and work on it.
Okay. If someone in the future should a new city attorney accept that check, that we could then remove it and vote that one check down. So we do have the authority, we still have
Who's
control.
getting paid, yes.
Thank you very much, that's all.
With that, I'll call the question unless there's any other comments. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
I almost forgot what the question was. Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bachamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Next agenda item is number 9, is announcements.
Any members of council with announcements?
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Warner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one small, announcement. I announced the passing of a longtime resident and good family friend, Diane Perhitko, age 71, leaves behind husband Nick, loving mother of Sharon and son-in-law Bill, and son Tom, and grandmother of one grandson, Nicholas. Mrs. Perhitko is a longtime resident of Warren. She was also a classmate of my mother's, coincidentally, from St. Rita's 55 years ago. Her husband was my Little League baseball coach over at St. Louis when they used to have a baseball diamond over there, and her son was one of my teammates. Her husband, they belonged to St. Jehoshaphat's, and her husband, coincidentally, was a money counter with the late Mike Chupa over at St. Jehoshaphat's. And she died suddenly, but she was full of zest and full of life, and she will be sadly missed. So I'd offer a moment of silence for Diane Perhitko.
A moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the residents in the audience, or for people who come to our meetings who are having difficulty hearing in the audience, we do have hearing assistant devices that are back in the control room. You can either go there and ask for one, or you can make pre-arrangements with the communications department at 586-258-2000. Just to let people know if they've had hearing problems from the voices up here, they can get assistance with some hearing devices. Thank you.
Mr. Bachamino?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The Church of the Nazarene on 13 Mile between Hayes and Shaner last week had a big game dinner, and they have it every year. It was amazing, and I tell you what, it was gotten so big, they've taken 2 nights now to pack the place. Anybody that's a deer hunter out there, they take donations from deer hunters. They have a professional chef come in, and what you can do with venison is amazing when you have the right person cooking it. It was delicious. Sausage, steaks, meatballs, you name it. And a good time was had by all. There was a raffle. A former Detroit Lion came and spoke about his faith. And I know we have some hunters in the audience today, but next year, if anybody can get out to the Church of the Nazarene this time of year, or you would like to donate some of your game to the church and come and taste it. It's amazing, like I said, you get a professional chef there, or you want to help cook, and I see some members in the audience laughing there. I can't cook to me, but I did help clean up the dishes so a little bit and things like that, but there are some of you that are probably better than that, but great time, and hopefully we'll have even more people out there. Maybe they'll even make it 3 nights. Thank you.
Any other announcements?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Sadowski?
Thank you. This Saturday, between 12 and 3, ice skating will be free at our rink in front of City Hall. One of the local businesses has bought that time up and has done that as promotional and more of a thanks to the community. So I'd like to thank Showcase Collision for doing that. Again, that's this Saturday, 12 o'clock, or at February 12th, from 12 to 3. At our ice skating rink, and I know it's going to be cold, but get moving out there and have a good time. So again, thank you to Showcase Collision.
Any other announcements?
Chair.
Mr. Liss?
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank Vice President Martin for bringing that information forward. The communications does a great job. In fact, I use that assisted hearing device. I wear hearing aids, and this one's on a neck loop. It goes straight to my hearing aid. But also have available little speakers or headsets that you can use. And they're in the control room. And before the meeting, you can stop by and get one. I bought one of these so I could have it, and it worked pretty good. I'm proud that the city does have this and understands the needs of the hearing community, or the hearing impaired community. The other thing I want to announce is that coming this Friday, on February 11th, at 10 a.m., the Redistricting Commission will have its first meeting. They'll be at the main conference room in City Hall. One thing I've asked two members of the Redistricting Commission is to reschedule the time for that meeting, or in the future, to have those meetings in late afternoon or early evening so that the residents who work during the day can attend those meetings. I'd also be curious to see if those meetings could be televised. I think a lot of residents would be interested in the work of that committee or commission, and I hope that if you also agree with me that the meeting should be moved to the evenings, either give me a call or give the administration a phone call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, next agenda item is 10A. Request for increase in budgeted revenues and appropriation in the amount of $1,150 budget of the fire department to account for receipt of donation from Walmart, $1,000, and BP Fabric of America Fund, $150, and consideration and adoption of a resolution approving said request.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Green, support by Ms. Vogt. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Next agenda item is 10B, request of the Police Department for approval to purchase 10 police vehicles under the Macomb County Cooperative Bid Program, bid MAC-W-8338 from Signature Ford in the grand total of $204,810.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Discussion.
Motion by Mr. Warner, support by Mr. Liss. Discussion, Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Green's making his way down.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner. Thank you for taking my call yesterday.
You're welcome.
I had asked you, this is the last year that we are going through with the Crown Victorias,
Correct.
and so next year, are we going to purchase the same amount of vehicles, but they're going to be the Chargers?
No, I anticipate next year, GM is coming out with a Caprice, a police vehicle, and I anticipate that we'll go to those.
Okay, and I had asked you, and it said that we have sufficient amount of parts available for servicing these vehicles as well as the vehicles that we already have in the fleet.
Correct. There'll be some purchases, but not many.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you. Commissioner Green, how are you tonight?
Good.
That's good. How long are we going to be able to get the Crown Vics?
This is the last year for the Crown Vics.
And has there been some sort of study done as to what, I know, a couple, I think GM is even looking at building an Interceptor now, but
We've looked at the variety of vehicles that are on the market right now. We've looked at the Impala, we looked at Chargers. General Motors has been to our campus on several occasions to showcase their vehicle. We're comfortable with both the size and the capabilities of the new Caprice, as well as it's a rear-wheel drive, and it meets all the criteria and requirements that we have as far as managing prisoners and its safety features.
All right, thank you very much. It's a shame Ford is doing away with that vehicle. Several items that I've read is that the Crown Victoria is the most American-made car. Most all products, the glass, the taillights, everything are made in the United States. So,
Correct. It's an American vehicle, but we certainly look forward to entertaining purchasing vehicles from our neighbor across the street, our largest taxpayer, General Motors.
all right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
support, Council.
Consideration and adoption of a resolution approving change order number 1 and final ITB-W-8184, which decreases the original contract in the amount of $1,450 with Adamo Demolition Company for the demolition of North Bay Machinery Building, parking lots, and surrounding realty. Also, issuance of final payment in the amount of $8,550 and authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute said change order.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Stevens. Any discussion? I have just one quick question. In issuing this final payment, does anybody know, are they still going to come back and remove the mounds and the rest of the cleanup on that property? I don't see anybody here, but that's my sincere hope.
Oh, here comes.
Here comes
Ms.
Gina.
Cavalier.
Comes Gina.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Sorry about that.
Just in the hallway.
Can you just give the residents an idea? I mean, obviously, I wouldn't anticipate there'd be much that we can do before spring. Most of that stuff's probably frozen, sitting there, but is this part of their
Yes.
requirement?
No, Adamo, their contract is complete.
Okay.
And their contract was strictly to
Demo the building.
demo the building, and we hired ABC Contracting. They were the low bid for constructing the park. So they finished phase 1. They were even a little bit ahead of schedule in the fall, and now we're just waiting for the weather to break to do what they can do. The mound had to be there because it's soil that has to stay on the site and be spread around come spring.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just wanted to give the residents an update, and I didn't know if it was part of this portion of the contract or somewhere else. Thank you for-
We're still on schedule for the park to be open in June.
Okay, thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council members? Go ahead and call the question, Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
10D, consideration and adoption of a resolution rescinding resolution adopted April 13th, 2010 to sell 8252 Jewett for $50,000, giving notice of intent to sell 8252 Jewett for $35,000 plus closing costs to home program eligible purchasers and placing on file with the city clerk's office said notice of intent for a 30-day period.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion? Again, Ms. Cavalier, do you have any info on this real quick? I understand the reduction at this point. Just curious, though, have we reduced this one previously? Didn't we originally reduce it to the 70?
From 85, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, how many, do we have a running record of how many times this has been reduced?
I didn't bring that information. I believe that this is the first reduction on this
Particular address?
particular property. It was listed January 10th.
Okay.
January of 2010. So it hasn't been, it has not been on the market an excessively long time.
Okay, because it says city property at 8252 Jewett at sale prices set in April 2010.
Yes, it was, so it hasn't been reduced, to my knowledge, it hasn't been reduced since April.
Okay.
I did not look that part of it
It's just the
up.
number that I didn't go back and pull up the information, but it sounds familiar, like we've seen this before.
Well, they start to get confusing because we're working in the same neighborhoods and targeting neighborhoods, so we have multiple homes on the same streets.
Same street names.
2 Fishers, 2 Shermans, 2 Idas.
Is this a remodel that we've done?
This one, this is a home, it was a remodel, it was a bank foreclosure that was acquired using federal funds and has been fully renovated.
Okay, so we did renovate this one?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I could make a little plug while I'm up here, a
Sure.
commercial. We are having an open house. The real estate agent is having an open house this Sunday from noon until 2 at several of the homes that are listed that are city-owned properties. So there's a pretty wide range of buyers who qualify depending on the home, and I'd encourage people to take a look at it on the city website for the specific addresses. It's also going to be posted on TV Warren.
Okay, very good.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin, then Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Ms. Cavalier.
Good evening.
I have a question for you in regards to the amount of showings. Do you know how many showings we've had on the house and any feedback in regards to price or anything?
I'd be happy to get that for you. I don't know how many showings we have had on this. I can tell you, though, that in the last, probably about the last year, it really seems that things are starting to loosen up. But values are still falling throughout the region very quickly. And I don't have to explain to you, as a real estate expert, the situation with appraisals and how our hands are tied even if we disagree with an appraisal. So in the federal regulations dictate in part that we sell it for the appraised price.
Okay, any other feedback? How have we been doing on other sales? Anything coming up?
There are other sales coming up. We only have, as I was looking through the inventory today, there are one or two one in particular that we inherited from another organization that went under, that has been on the books for quite some time, but the new ones and the ones that the city has done are having a pretty good turnover rate. They're selling almost as fast as they're being completed.
Good.
So, and we do have a good success also with the new construction homes.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, are you finding better luck with the new construction or the rehabs as far as the resale turnaround?
In my opinion, new construction. The new construction sells. People know that they can purchase a brand new home, and the purchase prices are, since it's based on an appraisal and based on comps, and there aren't a lot of new homes, the prices are very similar to renovated homes. That being said, when the city renovates a home, in my opinion, I mean, this house on Ida that is later on the agenda, I was in that house, it may as well be a new home. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference in some cases. So it really is a good value, it's a good long-term investment, and they're designed so that the cost of living in the home is lower than the cost of living in a home where you might have to replace the roof in a couple of years or replace the furnace. You know what your costs are going to be, and your utilities are more affordable a lot of times too.
I have gone through some other city homes too, St. Clair Shores, NSP homes, and I was really impressed of how they look on the inside. They do look like brand new homes, and they really show very, very well. So I'm seeing that, they are getting a lot of interest too. So
One of the things that is being stressed by HUD is making improvements that improve the marketability of the home. So you see upgrades that you might not have if you're just doing what's required by code. So there is an encouragement to go a little bit above and beyond, and we certainly do that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Cavalier, from where did we acquire this and for how much?
This was a bank foreclosure, and I would be happy to give you the information about exactly how much we acquired it for. I did not bring that. At this point, the file is this thick, and I don't have that information with me.
Did we get it for less than $35,000?
As a bank foreclosure, most likely, but I can't say that with certainty.
Okay. How much do we have into it?
Certainly well over $35,000. The idea of this program, though, is we are making investments in homes that would not otherwise, if this was a speculative investor, these homes would not be brought near to the standard that they're brought, and it makes an improvement not just to this individual property, but it brings up the entire neighborhood. And it helps to diversify the housing stock and helps to create a sustainable housing stock.
I have no doubt about that. I've been in a lot of them. They are, and I understand the concept behind it. I understand that we're using federal, well, hold it, no, it is taxpayer money still, to
It
do
is.
this. But it's money that if we didn't do it, somebody else would take that money and do the same thing with it. So I understand that concept. What I've always been against is when we pay for the appraisal, then we publish the appraisal, and it keeps spiraling. Somebody doesn't like the price, they just wait a little longer.
Well, and we are, and maybe Judge Biernat can comment, we're working with the city attorney's office on a revised procedure, because we would like, I would like to see the appraisal done at the same time the bank appraisal is done, and set the price based on a market analysis. That's a traditional way of doing it, it's a very reliable way of doing it, and then bringing it to council to formally set the sales price at a time when we already have a purchase agreement and having everything approved all at once. Because the old system certainly does not work in the present market.
Right. In fact, I think I voted no on this before because of the process.
Yeah, hopefully this is
so.
the last time you'll see, these are a few homes that have been on the market. We have a new real estate agent. So with our new listing agreements, because we went through an RFP process, updated our listing agreements, and reappraising the property was something that was done in the transition. So hopefully this is the last batch that we see like this.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from council members? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
No.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-1.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is 10E, consideration and adoption of a resolution rescinding resolution adopted October 27th, 2009 to sell 22524 IRA for $45,000, giving notice of intent to sell 22524 IRA for $28,000 plus closing costs to home program eligible purchasers and placing on file with the city clerk's office said notice of intent for a 30-day period.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Green, support by Mr. Warner. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-1.
10F, consideration and adoption of a resolution rescinding resolution adopted April 28th, 2009 to sell 8269 Chalmers for $75,000, giving notice of intent to sell 8269 Chalmers for $55,000 plus closing costs to home program eligible purchasers and placing on file with city clerk's office said notice of intent for 30-day period.
Need a motion and support?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Green, support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously. Or, I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
8-1.
Thank you, and I will leave the flyer right here by Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Ms. Cavalier, will that be on the website as well? Yes. Thank you.
Item number 12, audience participation.
Our first speaker is Tony Police. Good evening.
Good evening, good evening, yeah, good evening. Tony Police, 8520 Darlene. These last homes that went up for sale for nothing, I got to say, I guess it's a program that they're doing and whatever, but I just lost about $5,000 on my home value with that sale of them 3 homes. And I'm sure everybody in the city that has like a 3-bedroom brick home just lost 5. Thank you, Mr. Stevens, for not voting for it. The other thing is, and I bring it up all the time, and again, I got another phone call asking me why I hate Mr. Fouts. I do not hate Mr. Fouts. He's a nice guy. I don't like him as mayor. If you like him as mayor, I don't say nothing to you about why do you like Mr. Fouts. I don't understand it. If you disagree with somebody, I said it before, if you disagree with somebody, it's just going to happen. You're going to go through your whole life with somebody disagreeing with you. It's a simple fact. The couple of things that come up in the newspaper, I'm not quite sure what it's all about. But on the one hand, Mr. Faust says, I want to get the police department to join with Centerline, and I want this to do with this neighbor, and I want to try to get this neighbor, and I want to cooperate with this neighbor. Then I tell him, only buy stuff in Warren. Doesn't sound like he's cooperating with his neighbors. If he'd have said, only buy stuff in Michigan or in Macomb County, it would have been no problem. But he said Warren. To me, that was an insult to Centerline and any other community that they talk to try to form an alliance for anything. Again, to the person that called, hate is the word I never use except to explain what's going on. I think it's the worst four-letter word in the industry, even worse than the other 4-letter word. And it shouldn't be used and it shouldn't be talked about. I asked the gentleman if he wanted to talk to me face to face, and I would be more than glad to. And but so far I haven't gotten any response to it. I can't believe it's this time and we're ready to go, whatever. When a snowstorm last time, we had an agenda 23 miles long, and this one we got it short. It's nice outside, it's cold, but it's not, at least it's not snowing.
We want to go ice skating, that's why, Tony. You coming with us?
Pardon? I didn't hear you.
I said we're going ice skating. You want to come with us
I
afterwards?
can't ice skate
Okay.
no more. I used to ice skate. I would other skate now, not on my ice.
Thank you, Mr. Police. Our next speaker is Jim McDaniel. Good evening.
Good evening. First off, I'd like to apologize for last meeting about what I did. Not what about what I said, just my attitude. I have here a letter from the friends of mine that Mr. Faust spoke to. Some of the council members have read it already. If the rest of the council wants to read it, I'll be more glad to pass it around. Then you'll understand why I was so upset and so angry. The other announcement I want to do is I would like to see a couple of council members call up Kyle and wish him, see how he's doing. He's been in the hospital for a week. I don't know if any of you knew that. He's been in the hospital for a week. He's doing much better. They're hoping he's going to be out tomorrow. But he's been fighting an illness for almost 2 months now. So I would hope that some of you would all call him and wish him well, see how he's doing. The other thing I wanted to say is, Mrs. Vogt, I'm glad to see somebody's taking an interest in the South End by showing that house over on Hoover and Topher. I called Dean James today. He said there's been tickets issued to the contractor and to the building owner on behalf of the city. It seems that the contractor they hired contracted out to take the recyclable material back, but not the trash. So that leaves us all with a pile of rubbish that looks like Detroit. That's really good. The other thing is I heard one of our junk fire trucks that I've been talking about since the beginning of the year had an accident today. Well, this is one of the trucks I've all been warning you about, that it couldn't get out of its own way if it was at full throttle. Well, apparently that came true today. I'm glad that nobody got hurt. But this is one of those 98 fire trucks that had 180,000 miles on it. Well, 180,000 in idling terms, you're looking at 600,000 miles just on the motor. Rule of thumb, if a fire truck has over 100,000 miles, it's almost 500,000 on the engine, which pretty much is wore out. You can breathe harder than that truck can pump. That's pretty bad. And we're talking about citizens' safety and well-being here. Think about that. The last thing is we still have a lot of blighted houses in the south end that still need to come down, and I would like to show the council where these houses are at, along with all the brand new grand graffiti that's visible off of 9 Mile Road in Van Dyke now. They're starting to mark up the transfer boxes for the lights. They have nice little gang graffitis on all these boxes now showing where their stake of their property's at. That's real nice to see. I didn't know we were living in Detroit. I thought we were living in Warren. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lori Stone. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Lori Stone, and I am a lifelong Warren resident and the chairperson for the Relay for Life of Warren. 6 years ago, I was involved in Relay for Life as a remembrance for my mother, Marie Stone, who lost her battle with cancer 15 years ago. I became a volunteer and continue to volunteer so no other child loses their parent to cancer. Relay for Life is the primary fundraising event for the American Cancer Society, and it's so much more than a fundraising event. It's an opportunity to celebrate survivors in our community, remember those who have lost their battle, and fight back from a disease that has taken so much from so many. Relay for Life is also an opportunity for American Cancer Society volunteers to reach out and educate their community about the many resources, programs, and research recommendations for prevention from the American Cancer Society. I'm here tonight to invite the Warren City Council and anyone who has a reason to relay to our kickoff event, which will be held Wednesday, February 23rd at Royalty House, starting at 6:30 p.m. This is an opportunity to learn more about our event and the many ways that you can get involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Robin Reekoff.
Lori? Lori?
Sorry, Ms. Stone?
Ms. Stone, could you repeat the meeting information, please?
The kickoff will be Wednesday, February 23rd at Royalty House, starting at 6:30 p.m. And I send some flyers or invitations to follow.
Thank you. Apologize about that, Ms. Reekoff. Good evening.
Good evening. Before I start, I have, as part of my comments, some visuals, so I will need some help with, if I can show them, with the overhead. But I will start in the meantime while they're coming down. I have two departments that I have concerns for in the city of Warren. The first one is DPW. Why is there limited snow plowing? South of 9 Mile to 8 Mile, the streets are still in very poor condition, the east-west direction. North-south is good. Also very little salting. When you go from 9 to 10 Mile, boy, what a difference. I happened to have traveled these streets last night, and I repeated some of them today after having had some conversations with a couple of people. Do the residents only get street service when they complain to DPW or through the mayor? I was told that plowing occurs at 2-inch level with the major roads, 8, 9, 10, etc., and the half miles. Then the bus routes. Well, with the past snows that we've had, bus routes are poor. I just found out today through the Van Dyke School Transportation, somebody that works in the building on 9 Mile where the buses are stored, that attention to the bus routes has been poor, or very poor, for the last several years. My house happens to be on a bus route, and when I first moved into it, I went over to the elementary school and I asked, And I was told, yes, that Hesse is a bus route. And I also found out today that Young is.
I'm sorry, she has your screen
Oh,
ready. If
well,
you-
okay, I'll flip to that and then I'll go back. Okay, my other department that I have concerns for.
I apologize. If you're on one issue, please stick with it. I thought you were,
Okay.
I thought your
No,
visuals were related to the snowplow.
No, it's to the second, it's to the second part. That, again, my house sits on a full bus route, in the front of my house and the side of my house. I watched every snowstorm, never saw a snowplow come by and actually plow. On Hesse, yes, they salted a couple of times. In fact, they did a dry, what I call June, July street dryness. You know, there's no rain, there's no ice, there's no snow, but they went both directions with that salt truck, and I mean, they laid it. Didn't put anything on Young, but again, I have buses that run on Young, they come off of Hoover, go on to Young, and then turn on to Hesse. These have kids in them, and they are empty when they come to pick the kids up from school. I'd like to know why both streets are not being addressed. I've talked to somebody that is over by the Lincoln High School area, happens to be Kyle Atkins, and he said Federal wasn't even touched. Again, on Thursday, schools were open. We had 2 major bus routes that weren't even touched. And until he called and complained to the mayor's office, then he got action.
Can I get a motion to extend?
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion by Ms. Mr. Martin. Any support? Support by Ms. Vogt. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I was out on the apron of my driveway on Saturday. Plow came by. I've complained again to a number of people. I stood there and I watched the salt truck. I don't know, because I've been told there's like 5 different kinds of plow salt trucks within the city, so I don't know what the tonnage of this one was. But it was going more than 25 miles an hour, and I stood in the apron, and I'm only 5'1", and I had snow halfway up my apron, all the way up to my thighs. There was no reason, I took physics, there was no reason to be going 35 miles in a 25-mile-an-hour residential area, a school zone, that the plows can't slow down. I was told by the mayor that a memo would be sent to Gus Ganem to let the employees know they need to slow down. It still has not occurred. I've seen the plows go by in other areas, and it still is fast. I've been driving since 1975. I know 25 miles an hour. I know when it's 45 miles an hour. You get the feel of it because you're a history driver. The second thing is, still does with DPW, is assaulting. Supposedly 8,000, whatever you call it, tonnage has been put down. However, many of the streets aren't getting the salt. As I said, my one street got a nice dry salt. I would have loved to have swept up 3 blocks of salt and put it in the front of my house, which happened to be called Young Lake. It's an ice skating rink. Literally was a skating rink. When we talk about the city having skating rinks, hey, all you have to do is go on some of these streets. Again, many of the residents that I've talked to in the South End don't feel that their services are up to par, and I'd like to know what needs to be done to correct this problem. The other issue, which will now go to my visual, never done this before. See that address? That particular address, I went to the business and tried to have a nice conversation with them, holding my cup of coffee in hand, and said, city ordinance says that you are to clean off your sidewalks. Would you please do it for me? I would like to be able to walk around my block. Well, I went out there today, and these are all date stamped as proof. I don't know which way you got to go. This way? I don't know if you can see that. 14.5 inches of snow. Done with a yardstick. Date stamps in the corner. That's my property ending where the snow was removed off of the sidewalk. Right there at the edge is where that yardstick was dropped, or was set in. But in order to be able to get a close visual, that I had to eliminate my sidewalk. Again, I went last week, Monday, had a phone conversation with a property maintenance inspector. I called today. Yes, it was put in, but there's been no activity. That's looking north on Hesse from Kelts. You can see nice smooth snow. There's no dips. There's no mountains of snow. That's on the corner of Hesse, looking towards Hoover. Again, I'm young. Kelts is behind me, and to the east is Hoover. Other than some footprints walking where somebody did take the initiative to plod through the snow to play, there's no mountains of snow. The business is on one side of the street. They use that parking lot for their employees to park in. Nicely plowed out. They use about half of that particular lot. If you look to my left, you can see the back of my property. This business parking lot is right behind my property. This is the sidewalk that goes from where that parking lot was to the east towards Hoover. Again, no mountains, no real footprints of anybody walking through. I am forced, as a resident, to walk Kelts if I want to go out and walk around at all and get any exercise or do anything, because this business does not want to plow. I'd like to know why businesses are able to be defiant of the city code. Residents have to clean theirs. As you can see, I clean mine. I've got a 2-cycle snow blower, and I'm having to do as much as I can with that snow blower, and I'm hoofing it with my shovel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Henry Krzysztofczyk. Good evening.
Good evening. Madam Chairman, members of the board, Henry Krzysztofczyk, longtime resident of the City of Warren. There seems to be some confusion on the building authority and the per diem payments. And why did the bylaws state that the treasurer and the comptroller and whatever other people attend the meetings are entitled to $50? They are entitled to $50. It's an accounting system. This is a autonomous, semi-autonomous body. They pay for their services. So when the comptroller comes in there and the city attorney and what have you, they're on city time, which comes out of the general fund. So to pay for that, you pay them the $50 per diem, and that $50 check is signed and turned back into the general fund. In other words, they didn't work the full 8 hours, 7.5 hours, for the pay that they earned from the general fund. So by not giving these people that $50, you are shortchanging yourselves, the general fund. Because it comes from the bonds. It comes from a different identity. Why not take that money? And the other thing, if in the event that the meetings are held at 6 o'clock, beyond their work day, then they're entitled to overtime or comp time. In this particular time, it's because they're working for an autonomous item, they would get the $50 in their pocket. It's so easy. It's a strictly accounting. Take the $50, but don't let the person cash it. Put it into the general fund where it belongs. Don't understand what the problem is. I agree with Mark Less. Transparency. When you hold meetings at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, that's not transparency. Only a select few can attend it. Donna Cole-Martin. She goes on the Billing Authority, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She attends the Pension Retirement Board at 2 o'clock. She does not get paid for that. Scott Stevens is supposed to be at, I think it's 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock meeting of the Housing Commission. Both of you are working full-time, and rightly so, and Mark Liss can't, it's the same thing, can't make it. So the idea is to have it where transparency comes in, and transparency is me.
Can I get a motion to extend the
Motion
speaker's
to
time?
suspend the rules.
Support.
All in
Thank you.
favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have the meetings after the normal working hours of 5 o'clock or what have you, you got more residents who will attend the meeting, more transparency, and after all, it is our government. That's why we have the Open Meeting Act, which occasionally is being violated. Where it's violated the most, for years now, is the Zoning Board of Appeals. After the meeting is over with, do we have an audience participation? No! And that clearly is a violation of the Open Meeting Act. That's the people right here. Oh, yes, you have an item where you have people talking on that specific item. But after the decisions are rendered, the meeting is adjourned, and if the audience that's left that have a gripe can't express themselves because there's no provisions in the agenda. These are the things that irritate the average citizen. Mark Liss has got a good point. 10 o'clock. It's convenient for the city workers, yes. But Mr. Warner, will you attend that 10 o'clock meeting? You'd like to. Donna, can you attend a 10 o'clock meeting? Or would you rather attend a 6 o'clock meeting? Same thing with Scott here. He would have to drive from Southfield back and take time off, comp time off, and he's got an employer. Donna's got an employer. Mark Liss has an employer. How do we obtain greater transparency? That is the issue. Or do we make decisions for us residents without us even knowing about it? No input. That is why we get irritated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next
Oh, wait a
speaker.
minute, wait. Yeah, the other thing I'm saying is that we have the ZBA and the Planning Commission. What time is their meetings held?
7.
7 o'clock. Why not hold them 10 o'clock in the morning? I rest my case.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gloria Sanker. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Gloria Sanker, lifelong resident of Warren. We say a lot of stuff about soldiers, but I wonder if we really mean it. I was at the donut shop the other day, and when I ordered my food, I found that a Marine was waiting on me. In discussion, I found out that this Marine had served our country for 4 years. And what a job did this Marine get when he returned home for his service? A donut shop attendee. Aren't the Marines the ones who saved us in many a battle? So now, after 4 years of service, we give them a donut shop job? Come on, America, we can do better than that. When a politician serves for 4 years in state and city government, they get a lifelong pension and benefits. Just after 4 years, very little battle on the job. But a Marine, and on the federal level, that's why some of you and others want that job. You become a millionaire in a very short time, if you aren't already one. Count the number of people holding federal level offices, and you can count how many millionaires there are. And if you hold office for a very long time, you can become a billionaire. Just ask Sandra Levin and our in our district and his brother Carl Levin. So we have millionaires in Congress, and our country is in $1 trillion of debt. They're doing a great job, aren't they? And on the state level, they too contribute to this, to add to the state's deficit with lifetime pensions and benefits after 4 short years. But a Marine who gives 4 years of his life in a foreign country of terrorists gets a job at the local donut shop. What do you think, America? Is there a large injustice here? Get involved in your government and change this system of greed. Government has gotten their nose in just about everything. Why don't they secure good jobs for the soldiers when they are released from service? There should be an agency established for that purpose. What a shame that our soldiers, if they work at all, that they come home to low-paying jobs. And how many even end up on Skid Row when they return from battle because of poverty, from not having a job to support a family? I'm sure if we gave our state representatives and Congress people and even city council people donut shop wages and benefits, they would quickly rectify this injustice for our coming home veterans. Like it has been said, that those in office should get no more pay than a soldier fighting on the line for his country. Maybe then they would do something for their country's veterans instead of first thinking of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joe Dabrowski.
Good evening. I basically have the same concern that I've had for the last month. The guys driving the plow trucks in this city, I don't know if these guys are out to lunch, if they don't care, but they're living high on the hog at my expense with no regard to what they do for a living. I watched a snowplow truck in this city, and I may be exaggerating a little bit, but I'm telling you, the guy was going down the side street 40 or 45 miles an hour. Absolutely unacceptable under any circumstances. I can see them throwing the snow up on the easement when they go by, but for them to throw the snow beyond the sidewalk into people's front yards is absolutely unacceptable and unsafe under anybody's circumstances. And how they can say, oh, well, we need the momentum, we need the... You know what? That is the biggest line of crock. And anybody who would tell you that, they're just telling you that because they don't know what they're doing and they have no business having that job. Because anybody with a half a brain will tell you that's an out-and-out lie. I've seen guys plowing the side streets in pickup trucks. So these guys who are doing it with 12-ton trucks that tell you they have to go 40 miles an hour down a side street are just out of their minds. And they should be fired, every one of them. I'll tell you what, that department is getting worse and worse by the day, and to me, it's unacceptable. And I'm just waiting for somebody here to step up and make a motion to call a meeting and try and rectify the problem, because it's really getting unacceptable. And then the next thing has to do with the plow piles in parking lots. What these people are doing is they're having their parking lots, commercial parking lots plowed, and they're pushing their plow piles up to the sidewalk. I was coming out of Rite Aid yesterday, and I seen an older gentleman almost get hit on a bicycle because the plow pile, 6 feet high, is pushed right up to the sidewalk. So when people are pulling out, you can't see somebody coming down the sidewalk. If you drive up and down every main street in this city, you'll see it. It's all over the place. There's a building on Ryan Road just south of Stevens, same problem. Plow piles are ridiculous. These people who are paying, these commercial businesses who are paying to have their parking lots plowed, should make these people push the snow back from the driveways and back from the sidewalk. Because some of these kids are going to be walking through there and they're going to get hit by a car, and the city will somehow be held responsible for not making sure that that's done. I used to plow snow for a living. The companies that I plowed snow for, that was absolutely unacceptable. So I think we need to look into having an ordinance about it or something, because I'm telling you, it's all over. It's not just isolated one or two places. I'm telling you, today I bet you I seen 12 of them. So if you guys were to ride around, I'm sure you'd find them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Hartley.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to the conversation about the snow emergency. The mayor's office had a discussion today about some of these issues. Obviously, the Public Service Department oversees the implementation of the snow emergency. We did have a snow emergency last week. There were people who were snowed in and taken care of in addition to the regular snow removal process. Obviously, we can get back and forth about the how fast the snow is pushed and everything. I think that we effectively removed the snow in a timely manner. But what I wanted to get out to the public is to make sure that vehicles are removed from the street whenever a snow emergency is declared. One of the biggest problems that we did have was trying to clear the streets with either vehicles that are inoperable or just that were not removed from the street. So if you could look around, be a good neighbor. You can contact the Public Service Department if there's a problem at 574-4604 or the mayor's office at 574-4520. And again, if there is a snow emergency declared as there was last week, if we can get everyone's cooperation, we'll be able to quickly and effectively remove the snow from the streets so the people who go to work can get up and get out in the morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joel Vanderlinden.
Madam Chair, I don't think the screens are working. If they were switched over from the communications department.
Okay.
Blank. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Joel Vanlin, longtime Warren resident. I took a little exception to some things that have been said at this microphone at the last meeting and this meeting, and I want to address these items. At the last meeting, there was an individual up here that was crying and complaining, saying he's the one up here yelling about all these rentals. We have to get the rentals, attack the rentals. So we started a special program where we're going door to door, and we're getting these illegal rentals. We're focusing on them. We're getting them city certified, we're getting them registered and stuff, and now he's up here crying and complaining about us doing that. Sometimes you can't please the public. We're doing what the public asks and they still cry. The same individual was up here complaining about, I warned you about the 1998 fire truck so far and so on, and it was involved in an accident, and I told you they were going to break down and they were bad. The accident had nothing to do with the amount of mileage on that truck. It had nothing to do with the speed it was going. It had nothing to do with how worn out it was or anything else. The truck wasn't an accident. It's simply an accident. The truck was up, it was running, it was functional, and it was responding to fire calls as is requested and required. That truck was fully functional. The year it was made and everything else is circumstantial. There was a complaint about tearing down some of these vacant homes. We got to go tear down every vacant home. Every vacant home doesn't need to be torn down. Many of these homes can be rehabbed and be a pillar to the community in that neighborhood. They just need some money put into them and fixed. There are some that do need to come down. And of course, you have to go through the proper legal steps and the proper steps in order to tear them down. We can't just say, oh, I'm tired of seeing it, tear it down. It don't work that way. There's a process. There was complaints about the 11430 Colts. That complaint I got Monday afternoon. I was there today. I've spoken to the owners and the people of that property. One thing I got to let the public know is that, yes, if you have a complaint, call us at 574-4662, but please don't call me during the Super Bowl. Don't call me at my home. Don't call me on my cell phone. I don't have a pad of paper and pen on me at all time to write down all complaints. We can't fix everything the moment you call our home phone number. So please give us some time. There's only 3 of us and we're doing the best we can. And that's it. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Next agenda item?
Next agenda item is 14A, Assistant Council Secretary Scott C. Stevens, discussion in Ray to form a committee to explore the possibility of purchasing redistricting software and to designate one council representative to sit on this committee. Committee should consist of one representative from council, information systems, purchasing, clerk, legal, and assessing.
Discussion, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, you need a motion, I guess?
Motion to approve?
Motion to support. Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, and I'm sorry, who is support?
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green? And what is, to purchase the software or to form the
To
committee?
explore the possibility, yes, to form the committee. Mr. Liss had spoken about purchasing the software. As you can see on the back, what is my support. The Controller's Office thinks we should go out to purchase, and there was also some questions as to what type of software, rather than just picking one off the shelf. It might be a good idea to look into something that not only can be used for this, but might benefit the city for other things that, we could put it to use for. And that's my rationale behind it. And if that's okay, I would like to nominate Mr. Warner to be the representative from City Council.
Mr. Warner, do you accept? Sure. Any other nominations?
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Mr. Liss.
We have a nomination for Mr. Warner and a nomination for Mr. Liss. Mr. Liss, do you accept the nomination?
I decline.
Sorry, Mr. Liss declines the nomination. Any other nominations? Okay, before we go into that, I have no problem with what you want to move forward with, but I just have a quick clarification. I have a motion. Now we're talking about creating the committee. Now I've got a nomination, so I don't know if the motion is for creating the committee or if the motion is to create the committee or to purchase to go into an RFP for the software.
I'm sorry, maybe I got ahead of myself. I guess we would have to vote on the first motion, which Mr. Sadowski and Mr. Green made.
And that's really, but I need clarification on what their motion is. Create the committee, I'm assuming?
Motion to
No,
create.
my motion was for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we could move the item forward.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so his motion is for discussion with support by Mr. Green. Now, I'm sorry, Mr. Stevens, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, then I would make a motion to form the committee and to appoint Mr. Warner, our representative, to that committee.
Motion by Mr. Stevens, any support?
I'll second it.
Support by Mr. Sadowski. Okay, I'm sorry, any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Vogt,
what happened to the first motion?
it was for the purposes of discussion?
So that motion is withdrawn and we have a new motion?
Correct.
Okay, just trying to get clear. Question is, how long do we think, I'm assuming, Mr. Stevens, you've had some communication with Mr. Truppa. How long do we think it would be to get the committee formed, hold a meeting, put this out on Mitten, and then if we get a response or don't get a response, I mean, we are, time-wise, in a bit of a crunch. Is there a quicker way to do this without having to form a committee to get it on to Mitten?
Well, I believe it would be March 31st. Everything that this committee needs to do would be done, which is, by that time, we'll have the data from the U.S. Census, too.
My only concern is that we're slowing things down more than speeding them up. We need to speed them up. Is there, speaking with, I haven't spoken with Mr. Truppa, and I'm assuming you have. Maybe that's a wrong assumption.
Yeah, no, I did not speak with him.
Okay.
I mean, but his letter is very clear from the,
Why, don't know that it's requires a committee. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, and I guess,
Am I missing something?
no,
I just want it to move quickly, that's all. I think we do
I
need
guess
the...
everybody wants it to move quickly now. But in the past, and I'll use for instance, on getting the opinion from the Attorney General. I made that opinion, or I made that request prior to the election, and it was poo-pooed by this body, portions of this body. Turns out that's what we needed all along. And do what you want with this. This is my request. This is what I'm telling you. I think that we need to do to move it along, or we can sit on our hands some more. This is what I'm doing.
No.
If you don't agree with it, don't vote for it.
No, Mr. Stevens, don't be upset or offended. I'm just questioning, is it the quickest way to go? And if you think this is going to get us some momentum and get it done, I mean, Mr. List brought this to us 4 weeks ago,
Exactly.
and
And
nothing
called
happened.
a committee of the whole meeting. Actually, you and Mr. List wanted that committee of the whole meeting. We had the committee of the whole meeting, and you weren't there, and Mr. List failed to support the motion
I didn't
for
request...
the meeting.
I didn't request a committee of the whole meeting.
I didn't either.
Now,
No, I mean,
I sure remember it a lot different than you do.
okay.
Well, once I get an opportunity to respond, I will.
I conclude my comments.
Mr. List?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not ask for the committee of the whole meeting. You can take a look at the minutes. It just seems a little awkward process here. It's like going out, putting out a bid on Mitten for word processing software. There's probably 2 major companies that do word processing software, and there's probably 5 real choices that most companies would take a look at. It just seems kind of awkward to go out, form a committee, to go out and look for essentially the equivalent of word processing software. There's maybe 2 or 3 companies that do this. I don't understand why we need to form the committee to essentially buy something that's like word processing software. So, the charter amendment requires that we do the districting procedure twice. I think Mr. Papandrea will agree with me, at least on that point. We have to use the 2000 census data for the first district, for the first redistricting. I hate that word because it's really not redistricting, we're districting, we're doing it the first time. We have to set those districts first, and then with the 2010 data, we then have to adjust those districts. So it's going to be a lot of work in a short amount of time. I know that the plan department has received some census data from the county. I wish they had shared that with the council also, but they didn't. I mean, I think essentially the council's being treated like a bunch of mushrooms, kept in the dark and growing on manure. So I just don't see the need for the committee. I think it's dragging things on. Tell the purchasing department what we want. Last time you said that, or somebody said, we could make 2 or 3 phone calls and get prices. It's not like we're going to go out to bid and they're going to lower their price from $3,500 because everybody's selling it essentially for the same price. I yield.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
Okay, let me go back to what it says on, did everybody get this? Let me go back to it. I'll read it. Discussion in Ray. To form a committee to explore the possibility of purchasing redistricting software and to designate 1 council representative to sit on this committee. and then it lists who should sit on the committee. Now, when it was put forth that we should purchase redistricting software in the past, IT wasn't consulted as far as their expertise in the area. Nobody that may have some use, and no one was consulted if we have anything in this city that exists currently that could be used. If I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Hartley, in fact.
You have the floor, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Hartley. Mr. Hartley, you're quite familiar with the different programs that the city utilizes. Does the assessing department utilize any software that would approximate or equal what would be found in a redistricting?
We have an enterprise-based GIS system that's used by the assessing department, the planning department, economic development, and really engineering is now starting to use it. And it's a GIS platform, which I believe any software that you would be considering would be based on a GIS platform. And it includes data sets that are specific to our city. For instance, the maps that were drawn by the clerk's office for precincts and garbage routes and anything that's specific to the city is built on that platform. So it exists and it contains United States Census data, which I believe is the only requirement to this particular cause. It does not include extra things. It includes a lot of the basic demographic stuff that you get from the United States Census, but it's not political in any way.
Okay. In the city, who would be the expert, I guess, on the programs that we utilize? Would that be the IT department? Or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have this problem with not just this particular issue, but with the police department, for instance. We'll go out and buy a particular program that they need for their use, or the fire department, or different organizations within the city will just, the court, for instance, I think just was looking at software for something that could indeed be perhaps shared with everyone else. I would recommend, and we may be putting forward in the future, that we create a technology committee that would be a standing committee, and we could then we could compare and share and see what the best interest would be without having to go through all this whenever somebody has an issue that comes up. So in addition to your request here today, which is specific to this, we would be happy to just create a general tech committee that would address any software that could be overlapping or could be used for the city itself. But to answer your original question, the city owns license for a GIS-based software system that you folks are welcome to purchase additional licenses for or build on, whatever, and they could be used 365 days a year for other purposes like economic development, planning, whatever. So we do have something in place. It may not be exactly what was requested before, but I think that the building blocks are there for sure.
All right, well, I thank you very much. And maybe I wasn't clear in this, and maybe got skipped over when it was read, but we may not need to purchase this software. We may have something in the city that will currently work right now. And I guess that would speed the process up quite a bit. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin, then Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really, we're talking about exploring the possibility of purchasing redistricting software when we still have a legal issue that's hanging out there that we don't have resolution to. We really don't have any resolution. We have no reappeals that have been done. There is conflict between the charter and the state law. And as far as I'm concerned, this is still illegal, and I don't even know why we're going forward with this at this point. And that's my comments, and that's where I'm going to stay with this. I really can't see why we're doing this right now. We're going to spend money and then find out that this is going to be challenged or it's not going to be challenged, it's legal. What's going to happen next? I'm sorry, no one knows, and I mean, we're trying to do the right thing, but,
That's right.
you know, it's not coming together in the proper fashion. Deadlines are passed, nothing's been repealed. Who approved the ballot language to begin with? No one answers that, no one knows that. I mean, the Warren Tea Party filed the ballot language, but did they approve it? Or did the company that they filed under approve it? I mean, there are so many unanswered questions with this, it's ridiculous. So that concludes my comments. I'm done.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Bliss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I think it's really disappointing what's been going on. I mean, it's an election year. It's going to be a strange election year because for the first time, the city council is going to find itself in districts and people are going to be running at large, and we're already maneuvering at this table to get advantage from each other, ignoring our own council rule 22, not to engage in personal attacks, which have been happening, and it's disappointing. The redistricting committee, whether or not that complies with state law, for that matter, the state constitution, which states that cities must comply with state law, could have met the day after the election. It had some strange language in the provision that said you had to meet within 60 days of the election. That's unusual language. You don't even know if the election has been certified, sometimes maybe for a week, and then if you have a recount, it could take a month. Regardless, it's at 60 days, which is unusual. And then the delay of the mayor in appointing the city attorney. I don't think that that was quite an issue, because I think that anybody in the city attorney's office could have sat in that committee. And then the burden of showing that the statements made that the council is dragging feet, at least initially I don't think that was true. The mayor dragged his feet on appointing a city attorney. In fact, we invited the mayor at whatever time he wanted, at whatever day he wanted, to come visit us. We requested his audience, we didn't demand it. We gave him an invitation to come join us at a committee of the whole meeting and discuss the appointment of the city attorney, which is essentially a joint appointment. And he refused to attend. A mayor himself who said that he'd come to the council meetings. The only time I see the mayor at the council meetings, and he's giving us a speech over here on how great his budget is and won't allow us to have an opportunity to ask him any questions. That is unprecedented. Mayor Steenberg, as much as people may or may not have liked him, he came to the committee the whole meeting and he answered questions. He got down into the gutter with us and we hashed out a budget. I don't really necessarily think that was the issue. The next issue is the appointment of the committee members, the two residents at large. That too, council had to wait till the mayor made that appointment, and the next thing we find out is December 21. Well, actually the meeting was scheduled for December 28th. And then we get the two appointments, and the council's dragging its feet. How can a council drag its feet when we never got the appointments? So I defended the council, saying we're not dragging our feet. We require a lot of Mr. Harley, you do know I have the floor right now.
Absolutely, I'll be happy to wait.
And I'm not going to recognize you until someone else maybe. You might as well sit down till that happens. 'Cause I'm just not going to recognize you.
If Madam
This
Chair-
is not a debate between me and you.
I'll respond when you're finished. I have no
Have a
problem.
seat.
Mr. Hartley, please have a seat.
Yes, Madam Chair.
You know, Mr. Hartley, the charter requires, no, you can have a seat, Mr. Hartley.
Why do you always address me when I walk away? Isn't that kind of like schoolyard bully nonsense? I mean, really, Mr. Liss. I sat down because I was asked to sit down, and then you fire...
Okay,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
get that.
Gentlemen, can we please get back to the issue?
I want to remind Mr. Hartley of the charter provision that requires this cooperation and respect of the council. You may want to read it.
Sir, I'm very familiar with it.
Mr.
and I
Hartley,
believe that I
please do not
pay you
respond.
respect.
Mr. Liss, please
See,
conclude.
and this is the constant problem that the city council has. You know, it's like we're on a constant tag team here. I mean, quite frankly, the city council did not drag its feet, at least not till now. And the GIS system, and I'm reaching my final point, the GIS system, and I'm familiar with it in my place of employment, can't really be used for apportionment. We have a handy solution on the shelf. There's probably 3 or 4 programs that do this. I think there are 3 that are well recognized. It's not political software. It is apportionment software. State legislatures across the country use it. The city of Los Angeles uses it, at least this particular program. And I'm not pushing this program. It doesn't matter to me. You can get a kumquat program to do it for all I care. The city of Miami uses it. New York City uses it. And they do it to help. I think at this point, we are dragging our feet. I yield.
Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last committee of the whole, I think our city attorney wanted to address an issue or two from his opinion. So through the chair to the city attorney, I'd like to give Mr. Biernan an opportunity to address a concern.
I don't really think I can add anything to my opinion. I think I'll stand on that.
Okay.
The subject that we're talking about is something else, though. That's what's trying to think.
Do we want to explore the
Madam Chair?
possibility of creating a committee to purchase redistricting software? Mr. Green.
Is that a question I need to answer? Or you give me the floor?
I'm giving you the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, sorry. Mr. List stated that there's at least 3 software, Councilman List, excuse me, there's at least 3 software programs out there that do this. By our own purchasing ordinance, we have to go out and check. I'm sure you know GIS. I don't. I don't think most of the people up here do. That's why we rely on our purchasing department and experts to bring that back to us. Regardless if the one that you recommended is the one that we want to go with in the end, we still have to follow our procedure in this case. So whether we set up a committee
And
for
we
ITV.
said we would make that, we actually sent to the purchasing department, and you said it yourself, all they have to do is make 2 or 3 phone calls and check out the program.
Correct. But they
Right,
still have to
and
do
that's
that.
what we
They
sent
get-
to them.
And if it gets published on minutes, I think they can get stuff back to us in a couple weeks. They've done that in the past. So if we if we define the time frame within the request, we can get it back by the next meeting. If the maker of the motion wants to add that type of language in there.
Mr. Stevens, you're the maker of the motion.
Within 2 weeks, I did say March 31st is what I was saying.
That's 6
That
weeks.
that it could be back, could be done and back to us and purchase the stuff within 6 weeks is what I figured.
Okay, what I'm saying is that we need to get the recommendation back within 2 weeks.
Oh.
Then we have to get a purchase order, then we have to pay the bill, and then we get a little disc in the mail by March 31st. Is
Yeah,
we
that's
expect.
what I'm saying,
But the
yes.
first step is we have to get it, we have to get the
The
request
committee-
back to us.
Okay, yeah, I would
That's all I'm saying.
amend it for 2 weeks for that then, yes.
Okay.
Request back in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Can I ask,
I'm done, thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you, can I ask a question, Mr. Stevens? I don't know, have you talked to the administration on this at all, or is this strictly just, you want to try and get the ball off?
I want to, yes, nothing is being done. We talked about getting the software. We got a letter back saying you couldn't do it that way and everything else.
I support you in wanting to get the ball off center, but I just want to make this point in the fact that I don't even feel that this is council's issue to address. The mayor was told to create this commission, and why this information, why an RFQ wasn't created by the administration to bring forward a packet for us to consider to approve the payment of, and why it seems to keep falling on our desk by different council members or wherever the distinction is being made that it's up to us to do this. We're the legislative body, and I understand, I actually feel that the authority lies within council, but I will support what the residents have voted for and go with the commission. But the mayor has had a quorum. The mayor, if we sat here and did nothing, the mayor's commission would need some kind of software to put this in place. So why this hasn't been brought to the council for consideration and instead is left for us to banter up here back and forth as to who's right and what's the right direction to go to when we have a full-time staff that should have been investigating this and moving forward is beyond me. I personally feel that, as Ms. Comartin stated, the legal issues need to be questioned and would have no problem with allowing the administration to move forward as they like. And when that gets challenged and we actually get a determination, we will then know the proper way to proceed.
Madam
That's
Chair.
just my comments. Mr. Bacamino.
Thank you. It is frustrating, and I understand now people are saying we're dragging our feet. I've been saying that. I'm the one guilty of it, saying that from the beginning. And it's coming true. This entire process could be done and has been done in the past without any software. The county did it, I believe. So software nice? Yeah, it would be nice. But it can't get started. You don't need software. Do we counsel Dave Monette when we have sewage issues? Do we counsel Todd Shadig when we have engineering issues? Should we counsel the IT director, Keith Williams, when we're asking for software? I think we should. I think it's wise, it's prudent. Have we contacted them? I haven't. I don't personally think we needed to get the district software to get this ball rolling. It is an additional thing that will help us, but I don't think this is the crux of the problem. Today's issue, you know, up or down, it's not going to make a difference, but if we are going to purchase, I think the price was $3,500, and yes, I do watch every penny, $24, $50, whatever it might be. We should have receipts. We should be on mitten, getting bids. Every penny spent should be accounted for. And if we don't have receipts and we don't have bids, then we're neglect, not the mayor, we are. Now, if we're going to go forward and agree as a committee to get software, I do think we should consult the IT department. That's where I stand on this. Whether we need a council member on it or the clerk, is it dragging it longer? Is it making it longer? Yeah, but we don't need software to get it started. The mayor doesn't need software to get it started. This thing could be going, and I do agree with Mr. List, the day after the election, but the language said 60 days.
Within 60 days.
Within 60 days, and we did get the appointments within 60 days. We did not approve it, and that's my issue, is that we have a responsibility as well. I'm not going to blame the mayor. I've heard people say we're going to, I'm defending council. I don't need to be defended. Council doesn't need to be defended. Defend yourself, Mr. List. And what I see this as is we need to move forward. We should have moved forward from day one. There are things that only the mayor can do, but there are things that this council is responsible for with this new charter. This is one of them. Do we want software or not? If we do, I think we should consult with the IT department. Thank you.
Mr. List, final comment, please.
Yeah,
No, I don't mean that's his final
I'm tired of talking
comment.
about this myself, but the residents may want to know that you can contact the county and ask for, or FOIA if you have to, but I think they're pretty cooperative, for the same data that the plan department has. I've in fact FOIA'd it. I haven't even received a response on my Freedom of Information Act request, but I don't think the timeline has approached. But still, I think that the administration should be forthcoming with that data. So kind of like what Jocelyn Benson did, she ran for Secretary of State. On her website, she has data available for the state of Michigan and challenging people, the citizens, to come up with their own districting plans for Congress. And so laying out the same challenge, I know I'm trying to draft a map and it's difficult with the data that the rough data that I have right now. But challenge the residents to contact the county or contact the plan department and get that data that they have and see if you can use it and draft your own maps. You'll have to take a look at what the Constitution requires and that the districts are in equal size by population, that they be as compact as possible, and they not cut through precincts as much as possible. I yield.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call the question. If Mr. Sadowski would please restate the motion.
The motion was to form a committee and to purchase districting software and place Steve Warner on the commission.
Motion by Mr. Stevens, support by Mr. Sadowski. Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
No.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
No.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Vogt.
No.
Camp, yes. The motion passed 6-3.
Next agenda item, Councilman Mark List, discussion in-rate transparency tool for local government. And I believe item B and C is actually one item.
Yes, it is, Mr. Secretary, it is. Madam Secretary, Madam President, I'd like to move for the motion for discussion.
Motion by Mr. Liss.
Support.
Support by Ms. Comartin. Discussion, Mr. Liss.
Thank you. Originally, when I presented this item, one of my emails did not get through the council office. So I apologize. It did have a note as to explaining what this was. But basically, it started with Governor Snyder, who has created a web page with some very basic information about the state of Michigan, which is very simple to read and very simple to understand what is going on with the economic indicators for the state and the budget. And the Department of Treasury, in cooperation with the governor's office, created a different set of tools on the website that you can take a look at the state budget in 21 pages. If anybody's ever seen the state pages budget, it's thousands of pages, and it's hard to read through. And so what they've created is a 21-page document that explains to the residents, the citizens of the state of Michigan, what's going on with your money, what's coming in, what's going out. And originally I wanted to ask the council to adopt the transparency tools that the governor's office created for use of local governments. But I was very happy to talk with our city controller, Mr. Melzik, who tells me that this data is already available and that he's going to take a look at some of the matrices that the city already has to file with the state and with SEMCOG, and that we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. Mr. Melzik, are you here? Thank you for waiting till the council item at the end of the agenda. What I said about those tools, am I paraphrasing your statements correctly?
They are a little harder than what I think you just described for us to come up with. The data's there, but we're going to have to cut it many different ways, so it's going to be man-hour intensive, but at the end of the day, we're going to get that data to comply with what the state wants.
Well, okay, I want to clarify something.
Sure.
I don't necessarily want to use these tools if it's going to create a lot of work for you.
Right.
Is there some other tools that you have that'll essentially achieve the same?
Right. Using Munetrics and via SEMCOG, we have our F65 data that is a good stepping.
Explain what that nomenclature is.
Sure. So the F65 data is information that we've already sent to the state, and we have it in a database going back from 2005 forward to 2009.
And can you use that without going to reinvent the wheel?
Okay. The way that what the state has asked for is a little bit different than how local municipalities use the data. So we've talked to Dave Berger from SEMCOG. We're going to be meeting with him next week. I believe it's next week, right, Jess? Yeah. We're going to be meeting with him next week to go over the data and to show how we can cut our data to make sure that it's in compliance to what the governor's asked for.
With what the state's already requesting?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want to be on the front edge of this. We want to show the governor that we're coming to the table, that we're being transparent as possible, not only for our citizens, but, you know, with state share revenue being at risk, that we want to show the governor that we're going to be the first in line to comply.
Okay, I yield. Thank you, Mr. Melzing.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you very much. Yeah, in looking into this, I went in on SEMCOG's website and access Immunitrix, and I see that we go back to, I'm actually looking at it right now, 2006, our data, there's a lot of communities that, you know, have it for 2008, 2009, and that's it. And I also noticed that, in fact, every community, that their fiscal indicator scores are all climbing. So it's anything that's happening, it's statewide, and Warren actually looks pretty good when you compare it to other communities and stuff. This data, are we going to have to recreate some of this data?
Right. If you look at what the state's asking for, they're also asking for a lot of pension data, a lot of employee compensation type data that we do have, but we don't have it in the exact format that they want it. So we're going to have to, you know, slice the data certain ways to get what they're asking for.
And so we're going to have to cut somebody loose to do this, or this is going to be like an additional duty?
And we just roll up our sleeves and do it with the people we have, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, it looks like we're on the cutting edge, I
Right.
mean, as far as trying to meet the governor's goals.
I was going to say, Jim Hartley's been really involved with this from the beginning, but one of the things that and I'd like him to say a few words here, but what we did talk to Dave Berger about is they have folks right now at the state level talking to the treasurer, Andy Dillon, to figure out how we can take, you know, some of this F-65 data that we have and how it can potentially be easier put into into what the governor's looking for. That said, you know, like I said, at the end of the day, what we thought is best is we're going to try and take our last audited June 2010 data, start with that, put in our 2011 budgeted data, and then as we're about ready to work on 2012, because the idea of this data is to show how when our community is in trouble. So in other words, going back to 2005, that's all great, but they're trying to do this prospectively. So we're looking at 2010, 11, and 12, and how our community is faring.
Okay, so, well, I see we're up to 2009, but 10 and 11, I mean, we just finished the 2010 audits, so.
That's right, and I think Jim can speak to where 2010 is.
Okay, yeah, if you would, please, Mr. Hartley.
Yes, you correctly noted that there's most communities throughout, actually they have all 1,800 communities throughout the state of Michigan or whatever it is in there, and they literally, the way the Immunitrix platform works, they extract the data directly from the state. And they started with 2008, and of course it lags a year behind. 2009 was made available only within about 3 weeks ago. 2010, as you correctly stated, we just finished our audit on, and our F-65 is indeed done and submitted to the state. We will not get our score based on 2010 for yet another year. But the way Immunitrix works is that we don't have to wait for the state to be finished with their analysis. We can do our own analysis. So what we do is we take our F-65 data for 2010.
Just for the public's information, the F-65 data is the revenue and expense trend report?
it's basically a fiscal report card that cities or local units of government have been submitting to the state for, I don't know, at least a couple of decades. And it also, let me clarify, in 2005, they changed that F-65 slightly. I actually provided Munetrix with 10 years of F-65s, because I figured we may as well look back as far as we can. We only populated till 2005 because it's not apples for apples at that point. So we started there, and unfortunately, and I'm glad Mr. List brought this out, because the transparency component is very important here. But what's even more important is that we take the data that we have historically, and we add future fiscal forecasting to it. So not only can we see where we've been, which of course is, I think, the intent of the governor and Mr. List as he brings out the transparency issue, but to see where we're going. And Mr. Malzak, as our city controller, is now able to take what we've compiled over the years and what we do every year when we do our financial reporting, and actually put that to a tool to be used. And if I could add one more thing, if I could suggest to the maker of the motion, there is a, Munetrix is available to anyone who goes to the site. You can look at the data, and again, as Mr. Stevens stated, the city of Warren, you'll find, has several more years populated because we voluntarily put it in. Auburn Hills and maybe a couple of others have actually intensively done that. But in order to use the tool for fiscal forecasting, Munetrix charges $3,500, but because we're partnered with SEMCOG, the cost is $1,500. So I would ask the maker of the motion if we could clarify that now, if we can continue to use this tool and have that very transparency, but also be able to use the fiscal forecasting aspect, that we could approve the $1,500 for the funding. I don't know if it would be appropriate to do it now or on a separate issue, but that's the cost for us to basically use this tool, the added tool part component.
Okay, the last question I have too. Is there a benchmark that everything is measured against as far as
Yes.
this goes?
As I stated, every community in the state of Michigan, when the state publishes their numbers officially based on the F-65 data, they'll populate the entire state. So at that point, we're benchmarking ourselves with any community, and this is where the $1,500 tool comes in. The added component allows the city of Warren to select several other cities. We could do the ones that we traditionally benchmark ourselves with: Sterling Heights, Lansing, Dearborn, Livonia, and we literally just put those in our list, and every graph and chart and analysis is then benchmarked with those communities. So you really get to see the value for your dollar from a transparency perspective, where you're spending your money, where you're allocating your funds. And the other component, I don't know if Mr. List mentioned, that's part of the governor's spreadsheet, is a very detailed output graph of spending and revenues. Munetrix has that very thing built in, and they're formatting so it'll be actually identical to the governor's output.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
Madam
that.
Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Hartley. I really think that we need a statistical measurement for the future, especially with revenue, tax dollars changing. Everything, we need some kind of forecast to look at it. I know we've had a 5-year projected plan, but it's different. I mean, looking at the breakdown of this, I mean, I was really impressed how it touches on federal contributions, state contributions. I mean, it really goes in very detail. I would be happy to see something where we could input the past data and get some kind of analysis of what's happened and how much we've had the changes according to our assessments and our property values and everything else that we see changing in the community, and try to really, between council and administration, do some strong group sessions, or really bantering on what we want to accomplish in the future and where we want to go, and what things we can really work with to perfect better. I think we have to think out of the box. I think we definitely have to have more data, more information present. This definitely is very visible to the public and makes it really in great read format for anybody to pick up and follow. The other thing is, when you were saying comparing other communities, even seeing the trends that are going on, between, we talk about Oakland County versus Macomb, and, some of the differences that we see between the two counties just in dollar values or what's happening. So I think it's a very important tool. I'm really glad. I know I had a long conversation with Mr. Liss on the data on this and what the governor's doing, and I'm glad that we are taking the step of cutting edge. So that concludes my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other, Mr. Bacamino?
Thank you. Real brief, couple things. With using SEMCOG, and I think Mr. Stevens, you pulled it up just now. If you give you a few minutes while I conclude my comments or questions, could you get that website for me? Because I'd like to, transparency, let the public know exactly what website that was. You made a valid point, you and Mrs. Comartin, Councilwoman Comartin, because this is all relative, and we need to have comparison to other municipalities to see how we are. Obviously, I agree that the entire state of Michigan is in trouble, and that's why the governor's probably starting this to begin with. But when we look at it, we can't just look at our data. We have to compare it to the other municipalities around us as we turn the corner here. Hopefully, we are turning the corner. We'll start to see growth, and compared to other municipalities, hopefully Warren will continue to be, as Mr. Stevens said, near the top of that. I do remember, I think way back when Mr. Fox was our city controller, we started with SEMCOG earlier. I think we just started, Mr. Hartley was employed with CityStat. We started getting data from them. So would that save us $2,000, are you saying, if we continue that? Or you said from $3,500 to $1,500. I wasn't clear on that.
The price is $3,500, but it's being extended to members of SEMCOG for $1,500 for the year. And again, that allows you the fiscal forecasting component where you can actually plug in. I know that members of council had asked for 3-year budget projections.
Exactly.
And things. You can actually plug these in, and you can see where your numbers are going to be 3 years from now.
So we're looking for a forecast for 3 years, and hopefully it's better than the weather forecasts we've had lately, especially Saturday. That's all I have, unless Mr. Stevens has a website. I'd like to have the public to freely go on the internet, check this out, compare Warren to other municipalities. I'm confident that you're going to find we are weathering the storm better than most.
I do have the website.
Could I yield to Mr. Stevens?
www.munitrix, that's MUNETRIX.com.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Liss?
what I want to do at this point, ask Mr. Malzik and Mr. Hartley, if you can put a proposal together, what you mentioned with that $1,500 program, maybe we can put a committee together of 6 members from everybody in the department and go out to Minton. That's a joke.
We certainly could.
If you could put a proposal together and bring it to the next council meeting, because I'm going to change my motion to reflect that. My motion will state that I move to request from Mr. Hartley and Mr. Malzik that they prepare a proposal for the council and bring it to us at the next meeting.
Any support?
So moved.
All right, Ms. Comartin, you accept the amended change?
Yes.
Can I make one addition to that? Because I agree, I'd like to see you guys come forward with a proposal on this, and I'd also, in that proposal, like to see the correlation between the cobalt survey that we're doing and what differences that you feel that we would be generating from this than what we currently are able to receive through SEMCOG and their projection ability, And if anyone can find out the justification in their list of resources, it says Michigan and local governments population. For the state, it's the 2010 census, but for local governments, it's the 2000 census. And I just was curious as to why we wouldn't have access to the latest census information as well as the state.
As far as the SEMCOG website?
No, I'm talking, this is on the transparency. It lists their resources of where they're getting their information and what data is being used.
Yeah, are you talking about the governor's spreadsheet that
Yes.
Mr. List
Yes.
attached?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't explain why they would, use that. But
Mr. List? I'm sorry, he said he hasn't.
It's kind of straightforward right now. The broad census data for the state is now available, but it's not yet available for the locals.
Is that something that we would automatically get as an upgrade?
I don't know.
So that needs to be part of that proposal too.
Yeah, and if you go to the semcog.org website and go to local government efficiency,
Right.
you will find a checklist of different things. You'll find the Cobalt study there. You'll find you'll find the Michigan State Benchmarking Consortium, which we pay $500 a year to be a member of that, and we are now benchmarking, or over the past 2 years, we've been benchmarking ourselves on all levels of service and costs there. And then you add that to the Munetrics platform, and we're basically fulfilling the entire curriculum that you would say the local government efficiency program at SEMCOG is requesting of local governments.
That's right. Thank you. Mr. List, do you have any problem with those amendments as far as their proposal to include that information?
No problem at all.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, I'll call the question. Mr. List?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt? Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed 8-0.
The next agenda item, C, was covered in B, so the last agenda item is...
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Motion by Mr. List.
Support.
Support by Mr. Bacamino. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, the meeting has adjourned at 10:37 PM.